Hi everybody. Okay, so here we go with chapter 9, the third section, and the first part of it. So we have three main words that we need to focus on today, and the first one is depuis. Depuis can mean a bunch of different things in English, and so it's best to just think of it in terms of sort of a visual or a logical standpoint as opposed to translation. So I'm going to start off here with a time continuum. Here we go. This is a time continuum. This is going into the future, and this is going to the past. And right here is the present moment. Okay. So our first one, depuis. Depuis is used in French when you have an action that has started in the past and it is going up until and including your present moment. So for example, I might say something like Je fais du ski depuis, and then I can give a number of years. So in my case, I've been skiing for, 27 years. Oh my God, that dates me. But je fais du ski depuis 27 ans. Okay, so I've been doing it for 27 years, and I still do this. Therefore, because it includes my present here, my verb is going to be conjugated in the present tense, even though I'm referring to a time period that has started in the past. Another example would be to do the same thing, je fais du ski, but if I'm 30 now, then I started when I was 3 years old. And so I can say je fais du ski depuis l'âge de 3 ans, the age of 3 years. Okay? I'm still using the present tense because I still currently do it, and is tied into a time period whose measurement starts in the past. So here we have depuis, and it can either be used with a duration in time, une durée, that's what we call in French, une durée, or it can be a moment in time. Okay? But you're measuring the time from the past into the present. So because of that, I can ask two different questions with depuis. I can ask either depuis combien de temps plus the verb. In this case, I might ask fais-tu du ski? And I've done an inversion question, right, where I have the verb hyphen subject. Or I can ask, depuis combien, not depuis combien, but depuis quand, and then the verb, fais-tu du ski? Once again, I'm still using present tense, and I've used my inversion question form where I do the verb hyphen subject. These are two very similar questions. It's just that the difference here is combien de temps and quand. For a quand question, you will answer with a moment because quand means when. You'll answer with a moment in time, such as je fais du ski depuis l'âge de 3 ans. If I'm using combien de temps, that's asking for a quantity of time, which is to say the duration. So if I ask you depuis combien de temps question, you want to answer with the duration, like je fais du ski depuis 27 ans. So taking a moment there, we're going to do this exercise in class. This one right here on page 239. Okay. Carole et Thomas, deux étudiants étrangers à l'Université de Lyon, parlent de leur vie en France. Avec un camarade, posez les questions et répondez. Utilisez depuis quand or depuis combien de temps selon l'indice. So in both cases, you're starting off with depuis, so that's obviously your first word, and you're having to decide between quand and combien de temps. So remember that combien de temps gets a duration, and quand gets a moment. So you'll look in the thing, in the model, you'll see Carol is going to speak, Okay, what we're actually going to do is we're going to have you and your partner act as these people. So Carol will be partner number 1 and Thomas will be partner number 2. So you will do this not as yourselves, right? So partner number 1 is going to ask the question. You're going to use habiter as the verb. Remember, you're doing it in present because depuis uses present always. You fill out the rest of your question using the rest of the information. The parentheses is what partner number 2 uses to answer. And the way that partner number 1 figures out the question, namely depuis quand or depuis combien de temps, is based on that answer. So it's kind of like going backwards. It's as if you know the answer already and you're trying to figure out what it is that they answered. So if you look at Thomas here, which would be partner number 2, he answers, j'habite en Europe depuis 2016. That's using present tense. Okay? And he used depuis, and then right here is a moment in time. Knowing the fact that 2016 is a moment, that's why you get partner number 1 who asked depuis quand. Okay? So I'll do one exercise with you as a practice, maybe 2, and then for the rest of them, you will do this with a partner in class. So let's look at number 1. We have partner number 2, which is Thomas, doing travailler, and Lyon, which is a city, and 2 ans is the answer. So is 2 ans a moment or is it a duration? 2 years is a duration. So therefore, I'm going to use depuis combien de temps. So start with depuis, fill in combien de temps. Then I can either do the est que form or I can do the inversion, whichever you feel you want to do. And I'm doing it for 2 because I'm asking my partner with travailler. So est-ce que, you plop that in, tu travailles, regular ER verb, to drop off ER and add ES. And then Lyon is a city, so à Lyon, because all cities get à when you're trying to say in, at, or to. And it's a question. So depuis combien de temps est-ce que tu travailles à Lyon? That would be number 1. And then, of course, you would answer using depuis as well and filling it in with 2 ans. Okay, let's do number 2 together. Partner number 1, which is Carol's role, will ask faire in present still, vélo, and mon arrivée en France. Is mon arrivée en France a duration or a moment? Your arrival in France. That is a moment in time. So I'm going to put in depuis. And because it's a moment in time, I'm going to use quand. Depuis quand. Plop on est-ce que. Using tu. Conjugate faire in the present, irregular. Fill in the rest of my sentence. Du vélo. Question mark. And the answer would then be je fais du vélo depuis mon arrivée en France. Okay, so we'll do the rest of that exercise in class together. If you'd like to fill those out right now, that wouldn't be a bad idea. So going back to depuis, we can see this continuum. Now, I have another continuum for you with another important word for us. This is still the future. This is still the past. And this is the present moment. Okay? Our next one to focus on is the expression pendant. Pendant. Pendant is something that started in the past, an activity that started in the past, but it also ended in the past. So my activity, my verb here, started and ended in the past. Because of that, my pendant is usually going to be conjugated with passé composé or some other past tense verb. Passé composé is the most common for us right now. And it will always be with a duration. Okay, so for example, keeping with skiing, Let's say that over the winter break, last winter break, let's say, I'll give a random year, okay? So I'll say, in 2019, okay, en 2019, j'ai fait, that's passé composé there, right? We've got avoir plus the past participle. J'ai fait du ski. And then I'm going to say pendant 5 heures. Or maybe even not in 2019, but maybe I have a certain day of the week, like mercredi, Wednesday, okay? My duration here is 5 hours, okay? And I skied for those 5 hours. That's the duration of my skiing, but I'm not currently skiing when I write that sentence, right? I can't do it with a moment in time because it has to be duration with pendant. I can also actually use pendant as a duration that is going to happen in the future. That does happen. So I could say something like, in 2021, okay, en 2021, je vais faire, so for us we're going to use futur proche here, aller plus infinitive. Je vais faire du ski pendant une semaine. Okay, so I'm going to ski for a week. Okay? But the point is that here, both in passé composé as well as in the futur proche, my activity is not touching my present. The last time that I can use pendant is indeed doing in the present tense. So I have an activity that's happening in my present, but the important thing is that it's being redone habitually. Okay? Example, I could say tous les jours, and that's an important expression because it signifies that it's habitual. Tous les jours, je fais du yoga pendant une demi-heure. Okay? So here I have habitual action, it's present tense, and I'm still following it with a duration. So my duration here is une demi-heure, half hour. And I can do pendant here because it's habitual and it's happening in my present tense. But in any case, pendant is a word that helps you measure a duration. Okay? Pendant plus durée, whether that's in the past, the present, or the future. It's different, however, from depuis, in that depuis measures the duration from when you started to do something, okay? And it goes into the present tense. So it starts in the past and goes into the present. Pendant either starts and ends in the past, starts and ends in the future, or starts and ends in the present. Our last one then, last continuum, is with the expression il y a. So here we have the future still, we have a past, and here's your present moment. Okay. Last expression is il y a, which we've actually seen before. Normally we've seen it as being there is or there are when we list off objects like il y a un stylo, il y a 3 fenêtres, something like that. But il y a for us today is going to be about time. So what happens with il y a is that you have an activity that happened in the past. Therefore, you can kind of guess that your verb conjugation here is going to be in the past, like passé composé. But instead of measuring the amount of time of the activity, I'm actually going to measure the time that I have not been doing the activity. Okay, so this will also be a duration, but it's the amount of time since doing something. We usually translate il y a as ago. Okay, in English, we usually say like the number here, like, oh, it was 5 days ago. In French, you'll do it after the expression il y a. So example might be, let me actually do it at the end of my sentence. So, j'ai fait du vélo. So I biked il y a 3 jours. Okay? So my verb here is passé composé, avoir plus past participle. Then I've got my il y a expression and the duration of 3 years. So in this case, it's 3 ans. So it doesn't matter what my duration was here for the activity itself. What matters is how long it's been since I've done it, because I biked 3 days ago. Okay? But you'll notice that the activity is definitely starting and ending in the past. It will never be in the present, and it will never be in the future. It must always be in the past. So the exercise that we're going to be doing with that one in class is shortly after in your book there. Here we go. Expression du temps. Complétez les phrases suivantes en utilisant depuis, pendant, ou il y a. The best way to go about this is to make sure that you look at the verb tenses that are connected with this. If you take a second, you might start finding them. Oops. For example, Oscar a rencontré sa femme Lucie blank les vacances. So start looking at the verbs and decide what tense they are. Aujourd'hui, ils sont mariés. This one's tricky. Sont mariés, you might think is passé composé, but it's actually not, because marié does not go with être in your passé composé. It's not in the song, it's not in the list. So it's actually a present tense. Okay? So this would be passé composé, that will help you. This is present. Okay. Ils aiment partir en voyage ensemble. Blank de moi, Lucie a fait un voyage. So go through and decide what the tense is for those activities, and that will help you. Why? Because if you have a present tense, you can only really use depuis unless you have pendant, because it's a habitual action. And you'll look for an expression that signifies habitual actions, like tous les jours, every day, toutes les semaines, every week, tous les lundis, every Monday, tous les weekends, every weekend. So present is mostly going to be using depuis. If you have passé composé, then you may be using il y a if you're trying to say ago, or you may be using pendant if there's a duration and if you're trying to measure the time of the activity, as opposed to the time that you haven't been doing the activity, which is really what ago means. Okay? So take a moment, try to fill those out, and then when we share in class together, hopefully you will be able to work through those, and then, of course, ask questions if you're not agreeing on them or if you're still confused. The last thing that I would like to show you guys is that for our test, the way that we'll be doing this is perhaps even more simple than what that last exercise is. And that is really just comparing depuis and pendant. Il y a will be fair game on the test, but there isn't necessarily an actual activity devoted to it where it's kind of mixed in. So depuis and pendant, what I will do is I will give you an infinitive. So for example, let's say number 1, I will say, okay, étudier à l'université. Okay, studying at the university. Maybe for number 2, I will say étudier au lycée, studying in high school. And you'll need to decide, okay, is this something that I'm doing in the present tense still? In which case I would use depuis. Or am I doing it, did I do it in the past and I no longer do it and I can measure how long I did it for? That would be using pendant. For example, étudier à l'université. Do you still do that present or do you no longer do that past? That's going to be your present still. So you're going to say, conjugate your verb, j'étudie à l'université. You conjugate it in present. See that? Present. And then you fill it out with depuis. Depuis, and then you say how long it is that you've been studying at the university. So let's say that you've been here for 2 years. Okay. If you look at étudier au lycée, do you studying in high school, is that something you still do, present tense, or is it something you no longer do, which is past tense? It should be something that you no longer are doing, because I think most of you are probably complete college students as opposed to taking just a random French course over with me at the university, but it may be different for you, so just watch out. But I'm going to, of course, make sure that my verb makes sense. I'm going to put passé composé, right? J'ai étudié, so I studied, passé composé, au lycée, and then you'll tell me how long you did that for. Don't forget the word depuis. Depuis, and then probably most of you, I'm sorry, not depuis. Pendant, of course. Pendant, because we're using past. Pendant, and most of you will have studied in high school for 4 years. So that would be just my guess. Okay? You might have something that could go either way, depending on the person. For example, if I maybe had given you habiter avec vos parents, right? Some of you may still be doing that, right? Some of you may still be living with your parents, and so you would do present tense and depuis. Or maybe you no longer do that, and you're going to use passé composé and pendant, and tell me for how long you were living with them. Okay? So that's what our exercise will look like. We will try to maybe do a couple more of these in class as well. That's all I have for you guys for depuis, pendant, and il y a. I hope that you guys will come prepared, having done those exercises that I've pointed out here in the video, and you can share with your fellow student. Talk to you soon.